This is CBC Vancouver News.
The officers perceived that there was a threat of either death or grievous bodily harm to them or to others.
Vancouver police shoot and kill a man after what they call an altercation on the Granville Street Bridge. Now BC's police watchdog is involved.
Real tragic news. It was really sad to hear.
Condolences pour in for a former North Vancouver City councilor and his daughter killed in an early morning house fire. And time to call it a career.
What an extraordinary opportunity. I am so fortunate.
Former Premier John Horgan says he will soon step down as an MLA. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. We begin with breaking news tonight. Vancouver police have shot and killed a man on the Granville Street Bridge after what the force calls an altercation. Now, BC's police watchdog has been called in to figure out what happened. It all happened on the north end of the bridge just before 7 p.m. The VPD says officers went to the span at 6:45 after someone called 911 reporting a person acting erratically. The force says there was a, quote, altercation that led to officers shooting the man dead.
We believe at this point that the person either had a weapon or had access to a weapon, and the officers perceived that there was a threat to their lives or a threat of grievous bodily harm to their lives or to other people's lives.
Addison says he doesn't have any information about the victim right now. The Independent Investigations Office will now look into the circumstances and what role police did or did not play. Police say the Granville Bridge will likely be closed for several more hours as the investigation unfolds. No word yet when it might reopen. We will bring you any updates as they come in tonight, and we'll have more on our website, cbc.ca/BC, and tomorrow morning on CBC Radio 1. It is a tragedy for a family in North Vancouver today, as well as the community. An early morning fire killed a former city councilor and his daughter. Saurabh Sandhu has more on the condolences that are already coming in.
I heard a loud bang, and I think it was something that just blew up. So I came to the living room. All I could see was flames.
Early this morning, people living in this North Vancouver neighborhood were woken up by a blaze in this corner house.
I thought at first it's our balcony. I didn't know it's their house.
The flames were so intense, fire crews could see them from far away. The victims are identified as former City of North Vancouver councillor Robert Fernley and his daughter.
Bob was very dedicated to his job. He really cared about the community. I was able to work with Bob to open a new library at the City of North Van. He was a big part of that. And dealing with some housing issues, he was progressive on that as front as well. And so, he contributed a lot, and he should be proud of the service that he did at the city.
In a statement, the city's current mayor, Linda Buchanan, says, "I am incredibly saddened to learn of the passing of Bob and his daughter. Bob was an active member of our community and dedicated many years to public service, having served on City Council from 1996 to 2011. 6.5 minutes later, when firefighters reached the scene, they say half the home was engulfed.
There was, they had wires involved that entered the house, the electrical wires that were arcing at the time. Because of the heavy fire load, we weren't able to make entry until we were able to knock the flames back.
And it was a challenge to get inside.
And there was a small explosion that the crews had to deal with as well while they were getting ready to enter.
But when they did enter, they made a grim discovery. Mounties say several other people inside the house were also taken to hospital.
We didn't know them really well, but we would say hi from time to time. I know every time summertime we're by the pool, they would wave from us to us from their balcony. So it's really sad.
Police say it's too early to say what sparked the fire, but investigators think it may have started in the garage. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, North Vancouver.
The chief and council of a First Nation in a remote part of Vancouver Island have declared a formal state of emergency over what it calls the unrelenting impact of drugs and alcohol, especially on their children and youth. The Ahattasit First Nation near Zabelos on western Vancouver Island says 6 young people have died due to poison drugs over the past year. They were between 18 and 35 years old. It adds nearly a quarter of its people are addicted, on the street, underhoused, or are children in care. It's calling on the BC and federal governments for immediate help to try to save more lives.
The opportunities related to industry or economics or the viability of our community, it seems to be lost in time, basically.
John says, for instance, it's taken 15 years for governments to sit down with the Ahattasit to meaningfully discuss things like housing. We have a grim update now on the earthquake disasters in Turkey and Syria. A Vancouver woman we spoke with earlier this week had 5 family members trapped in the rubble. She says 4 are now dead and another is still missing. Yasmin Khanea has more on her loss and the push for support in this province.
You really think it's not going to happen to your family, to your country?
Vancouver's Nurao Sumbultepe's family in Iskenderun was trapped under the rubble for days after an earthquake destroyed their building. Now, even more heartbreak.
Just yesterday, my nephew, his wife, and a 9-month-old baby, they were confirmed dead and they were buried yesterday morning.
Sumbultepe says her sister-in-law has also been killed, her body still under the wreckage.
She was the best. If our country was full of people, women like her, our country would have been in better shape. I loved her. I just love her.
Her brother has not been found yet and is also feared dead.
Oh, it would be an amazing miracle if they find my brother alive. He's 65 years old.
The earthquakes in Turkey and Syria have claimed more than 20,000 lives. Thousands more are now homeless. Some emergency crews have shifted their focus from rescuing survivors to demolishing buildings with little hope they'll find more survivors. Yet through the darkness, glimmers of hope here in BC. A Turkish bakery owner will donate a portion of this month's sales to organizations in Turkey.
As a community here in Vancouver or in Canada or everywhere, like we're trying our best to help people over there.
He estimates he can send about $10,000. And while aid efforts to Syria are hindered by its ongoing civil war, a North Vancouver elementary school class will sell candy to raise money for the Syrian White Helmets Emergency Response Group.
I have a really special class who is very involved in community service and, always trying to think of new ways to help.
People a world away trying to help against overwhelming tragedy. Yasmin Khanea, CBC News, Vancouver.
To other news now, former Premier John Horgan gave his last speech to the BC legislature today as he takes the final bow in his political arena. Horgan has resigned as MLA for Langford-Wandafuka after stepping down as Premier 2 months ago. As Mira Baines reports, Horgan brought both sides of the aisle together, honored for his candor.
You may recall last fall, I was the Premier of British Columbia.
Former Premier John Horgan says he's back to regular life after a long political career. He hasn't been in the legislature since David Eby became Premier, and now he's hanging up what remains of his political career, resigning as Langford-Wandafuka MLA effective next month.
The final day, St. Patrick's Day seems good, but it might be the end of March. I haven't really settled on that, but I will be leaving my seat before the end of the fiscal year, if I could put it that way, and I look forward to whatever the world has in store for me from here.
He says he's healthy.
I'm healthy. I don't have cancer, sorry. Yeah.
He was first elected in 2005 and has been re-elected 3 more times. In 2014, he became leader of the BC NDP and led the party to victory in 2017, defeating Christy Clark and the BC Liberals. With his warmth and ability to connect with people, he navigated the BC NDP towards capturing more of the center of the political spectrum. But health problems took a toll on Horgan. He announced that he would leave his post as premier this past summer after a battle with throat cancer, his second bout dealing with it. David Eby became premier in November.
He's shown that a guy who struggled as in his younger years, lost his dad, raised by a single mom, can hold the highest office in our province, and can be respected by friend and foe.
Political rivals expressed their admiration, although BC Liberal leader Kevin Falcon was not at the legislature.
It never went unnoticed the care that John would show all people in this building. And so when he talks about being a part of this place, he lived it.
Political watchers say it signals a shift in the government's direction.
I think it's another indication that this is a progressive transformation of the party to a newer generation.
Eby's government has 6 months to call a by-election after Horgan resigns officially. But there's still lingering speculation that a snap spring election could be called instead of a scheduled election in the fall. Press doesn't think so, but says a by-election will be one to watch.
And then I think we'll look at the campaign itself really as a dry run for the forthcoming general election.
Still today, the focus was on John Horgan's final farewell to political life and an important legacy in BC politics.
I have no regrets about the way of the world.
Mira Baines, CBC News, Victoria.
Still with provincial politics, the government has unveiled a new approach to treating long COVID. Around 4,000 long haulers receive treatment at clinics around BC. But in April, those clinics will go completely virtual. The CBC's Joel Ballard now on why that's got some worried about a lack of resources for a still mysterious condition.
Lynn Davies has always been active. Daily dance classes, hiking, cycling. But on February 2nd, 2022, that all changed.
It's one of those dates that you always remember.
Davies caught COVID and was eventually diagnosed with long COVID. She now suffers from headaches, body pain, extreme fatigue, and rashes, among other things. Since October, she's been attending the post-COVID recovery clinic at Vancouver General Hospital, one of 4 in the province.
The post-COVID clinic has been absolutely fantastic for me.
Patients are supported by a team of experts, from doctors to physiotherapists to social workers. But at the end of March, the program is transitioning to a virtual clinic, and patients will no longer have access to clinic doctors.
I think that that's a bit misguided. I'm fortunate that I have a family doctor, and I have a family doctor who's very good and very supportive, but she has very little knowledge of all of this because it's just one tiny part of what she does.
In a letter, the program says patients will still be able to access educational and management support, but should see a family doctor or a walk-in clinic for any symptoms. Advocates say that's not an option given BC's family doctor shortage.
Not every member has a family doctor. Some have been taking at least over a year since they got sick, trying to find a family doctor to support them through this illness.
For its part, the province says there is no longer demand for regional clinics as referrals have dropped. It says the virtual clinic will provide streamlined support.
This is increasing those services, increasing the research, increasing the education, and making that a permanent investment.
Some long haulers agree.
I don't think it's going to be that much of a harm to the program because the program is really about learning to deal with what we have and how to carry forward in life.
However, she has a family doctor, which she admits makes the transition less uncertain. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
Abbotsford police are investigating 3 cases of mischief after thousands of dollars in damage to a cell phone tower. Take a look. Police have released these images to try to identify a suspect. The site is at the end of Raven Court in a residential area. You can see the tower there. The extensive damage happened in the evening hours of January 1st, 8th, and 12th. Police note damage to that piece of infrastructure is concerning as it could impact emergency calls. Parents of Vancouver's Elsie Roy Elementary are speaking out over conditions at the school's playground. As the CBC's Arthi Thiraparan reports, their concerns center mostly on mud.
We're tired of bringing our children to line up in a mud pit every day to see them come home covered in mud.
Jay Markowski is one of several parents at Elsie Roy Elementary School speaking out about the struggle to clean up the flooded, mud-filled playground. The school's playground is located on David Lamb Park, a public space maintained by the city and park board.
There's literally moats at every entrance to the school going in.
Kids love to play in the mud, but as a parent, we don't necessarily love it as much, especially given that the children are then having to go back into class. They're wet.
When we come in the morning, the kids want to run into their spots, and I'm always like, don't run, you're going to slip. And I'm sure there are people that have fallen.
Parents say the drainage issue in the area has been constant for over 10 years. They say the city, school board, and park board are mucking about instead of addressing countless complaints to mitigate the issue.
The city says, sorry, it's a park board issue because the park board manages it. And when you talk to the park board, they say we don't have money.
In a statement, the park board said no issues were found in a safety inspection of the park and minor maintenance is currently underway. But parents say the park needs better drainage for the safety of the kids and the entire community.
This is usually covered in water up to here and mud. I was even thinking of building some little wood bridges at night and covertly popping them in so that our kids can go to class without muddy shoes.
While the mud piles high and rain continues to collect at the park, Elsie Roy's families say they'll continue to search for answers to clean up their playground. Arthi Thiraparan, CBC News, Vancouver.
And an update on this story. After it was published this morning by CBC News, city crews were spotted filling holes and cleaning up some of the mud at the Elsie Roy playground. Another chapter in the Stanley Park bike lane story. Commissioners are voting Monday on semi-permanent solutions. The options when we come back. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Netflix is moving ahead with a crackdown on password sharing in Canada and several other countries. Households that still want to share an account will have to pay an added fee. The CBC's Sophia Harris explains what's behind the move and the reaction.
Many Canadians knew it was coming, but Netflix's announced crackdown on sharing accounts has still rattled many customers.
What am I going to do now? I watch everything on Netflix.
On Wednesday, the streaming service started warning customers it will soon prevent them from sharing accounts with another household unless they pay an extra $8 a month and have an upper tier account.
Netflix account is for people who live in the same location. Just got the
Did you get a warning?
Yeah.
Morton Rand Hendrickson shares his Netflix account. He got his notice during this interview.
On my phone, it says I have to go to my TV and change my settings.
And when Rand Hendrickson tuned into Netflix, he was ordered to choose his primary address by February 21st to block other households from using his account.
It doesn't feel like the kind of thing a company that really cares about its customers is doing. It feels more like, let's take this opportunity to rake in more money to boost our profits.
Netflix admits it is looking for more cash. In a statement, the company said over 100 million households globally share accounts, impacting our ability to invest in new TV and films.
Dive into Disney Plus.
The streaming market is getting crowded with competitors, so some tech experts say Netflix needs to raise cash to up its game.
I think what the reason that they're doing this is they got to be more competitive. They got to get people to start paying because it's expensive to produce content, and I think they're taking a gamble here.
So will the gamble pay off?
I would have to really think about it.
Rand Hendrickson says he plans to reassess his Netflix subscription, as there are now plenty of streaming services to choose from. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Vancouver.
The saga of the Stanley Park bike lane is poised to pedal on. Late last year, the new park board voted to get rid of the temporary bike lane and asked staff to come up with a permanent replacement. Now, though, the park board is set to vote on an entirely different set of proposals. Justin McElroy is here to break it all down for us. Justin, what's being decided on now?
Dan, and people might be wondering, hasn't this been discussed for years? Haven't they decided a bunch of things? And that's true. But now park board staff have come back to commissioners and said, we have 3 ideas of what you can vote on that will be what they say semi-permanent for different options. So there are 3 of them in total, as I said. Let's zoom in on this map of Stanley Park. The first one would be to have a semi-permanent bike lane on the west side of Stanley Park. That's the steeper, more windy area where there was more of the desire in the first place, and there's no options for people to take secondary routes through. The second one is a bike lane around the entire park, and the third one is no bike lane at all, although with some areas where there's safety concerns of having a little bit of separation here or there. So they both come with different budget amounts. It will be up for park board commissioners to vote on which of the 3 that they want on Monday, and then they hope the issue will be put to rest.
Why isn't a separated permanent bike lane being considered here?
Yeah, it's all just semi-permanent is the framing being done. And people might remember that the park board, as you said, voted in December asking staff to come back with that as the proposal. But park board staff have looked at it. They say that the total cost to have a permanent separated lane for the entire park would cost somewhere between $40 and $100 million. So instead, they're saying a semi-permanent thing where you would see no more of those orange traffic cones, but more of those smaller, rounded concrete fixtures. So they think that's a compromise that will work in a lot of places. Ultimately, it will be up to commissioners to decide on those 3 options and which one of them go forward for the next 10 to 15 years is the estimate of how long those semi-permanent lanes would last.
The story pedals on. Justin McElroy, thanks very much.
Thanks, Dan.
There's a live shot of the Georgia Viaduct. A reminder, the Granville Street Bridge still closed after a deadly police shooting. Johanna will have your BC-wide weather after this.
Today we went looking for buses with fare boxes clogged with $1 bills. It shouldn't be too big a problem. It still costs 85 cents to get on the bus, but a lot of people don't have the right change, so they slip in a $1 bill. We asked the drivers about their problem.
Real problem is such. Well, I haven't had any myself.
Aw, come on, there must be some driver who has trouble with $1 bills.
Dollar bills are my pet peeve. I get really upset when I see an article in the paper Metro sniveling and whining about people overpaying fares. They've come up with a system that exacts the most extra money they can out of people, and I don't think you'd let your grocer or your pharmacist complain about you overpaying your bills or the method in which you chose to pay your bills. I can't see why Metro seems to do it all the time.
Forgive him. He was locked out for 3 months. Time for another driver.
Coins jam. The dollar bills don't really jam that much. I think that's mostly management's problem with counting the money. That's where they're having their problems, because the coins, they just run those through a machine.
Oh, so they're going to have to hire people to count the individual dollar bills. Is that what you figure?
Most likely, yes.
Well, maybe it's time to see what it takes to jam a fare box. First, we'll fold a bill. Aha.
Yeah, it's caught down there.
But another bill knocks it loose. No big problem. So let's crumple one up.
Even that.
Still went through. Let's try one long ways then. Okay.
No, let's see, that's going to go right through probably. Did it?
I think I've done it.
That's in there now.
Eureka! It's stuck, and it only cost us $4. And to unplug it, $1.
There, it's gone through now.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On March 8th, celebrate International Women's Day with Gloria Makarenko at the West Coast Leafs Equality Breakfast. Get your tickets at westcoastleaf.org. And dance away the winter blues with Corleone at Pop Capella 3 on March 3rd and 4th. Backed by a band of Vancouver's best, the Corleone Ensemble will take on your favorite hits. Tickets at corleone.org.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Our BC-wide weather forecast now with the person who always matches the temperature board when it comes to jackets, Johanna Wagstaffe. Well done.
Thank you. Yes, this is sort of, I'd say, +1 to +2 navy blue.
Pop collar navy. Oh, boy.
Exactly.
Starting a trend.
Yeah, this is an indication of our overnight temperatures next week. So spoiler alert, but today we did hit relatively seasonal numbers. These are the highs from this afternoon. 8 for Vancouver, 8 at the harbor for Victoria, a 7 at the airport. And in the interior, we saw some great sunshine once again. Not as full day as the day before, but some nice breaks in the cloud across the Okanagan with temperatures above the freezing mark. Okay, we've got a lot of weather tonight as that cold front tracks across the south coast. A special weather statement for southern-facing sections of Metro Vancouver. We are seeing those gusts as we speak come in from the south, 60 to 80 kilometers per hour. This isn't a wind warning. This is just, we're starting to see some good gusts where things could get blown around. It's really just an overnight, early tomorrow morning, the winds will ease. But as that cold front moves eastward, the Coquihalla looking to see 15 to 25 centimeters overnight into tomorrow morning. And there's the main line crossing the island as we speak. As it moves towards the interior, it's going to continue to bring snow. We saw some earlier this evening, basically extending from Revelstoke all the way up to Prince George. And that's where we're also looking for freezing rain over the next 24 hours. So a lot of weather to get through. You can see that pink through Prince George. Watch for that mid-morning. Fort St. John, you are under the freezing rain warning. We don't get much of a break behind the cold front in Metro Vancouver, but I do think we'll see the sun tomorrow before the next weather maker moves in for the back end of the weekend. A lot of snow for the coastal ranges. We'll be watching for that avalanche risk to rise over the next couple of days right across the province. So sunshine for tomorrow afternoon, a relatively quiet Saturday, hoping to see the sun. Sunday is a washout, and then here, navy blue temperatures.
Oh, my.
Yes, so one more cold shot in the forecast.
Well, I'm glad I coordinated the pocket square as well.
You knew.
Following the leader.
We knew.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
And that is your late news for Thursday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news anytime, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. We'll have the latest on the deadly police shooting on the Granville Bridge. The span still closed at last check. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock, and I will be your host here tomorrow night at 6. So we'll see you then. Good night.